All right. I would like to call the April 15th, 2020 Goochland County Economic Development Authority meeting to order. Do we have a quorum?
Ms. Dearden,
Present.
Mr. Sloan,
Here.
Mr. Pittuck,
Present.
Mr. Schmidt,
Here.
and Mr. Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. We will move on to the citizen comment period. If there are any citizens out there watching or listening, if you have a question, you may raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or press *9 on your phone, and we will be glad to answer any questions or listen to your comments.
I do not see anybody that has signed on.
All right, there being no citizen comments, we will go ahead and close that section of the meeting and move on to the approval of the minutes. Our last Economic Development Authority meeting was in February on the 19th. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Madam Chair, I move acceptance of the minutes with, at least on my part, 2 exceptions. Number 1, under Bravo, election of officers - treasurer under scheduled matters. I don't believe on the paragraph under 1 that I was the one who discussed it with Mr. Smith. And then, I don't know if it's semantics under C1, paragraph 3, under that, motion to defer action. It was actually a motion to table, and then also further down in the next second sentence in the 3rd paragraph, that a table also. It might be semantical, but it also makes a difference from a parliamentary standpoint. So I move for approval with those 2 changes, or 3 changes. And the interjection of Mr. Smith, I think you can probably quantify or qualify who the name was you discussed the positions with.
Absolutely, it was Mr. Pittuck. We met. You and I met on the legal advice, but
Correct.
Kurt and I met.
I'll make that update.
All right, with those 2
I met.
exceptions, do we have a second?
I second.
And do we have any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes pass from February, and we'll move on to a treasurer's report. Do we have a treasurer's report?
We have a report from March.
The March statement's not here, correct?
It's in your packet.
It's in the packet.
Well, actually, I do have, I'm sorry. It doesn't look like we had much happen. Is that correct? In my review? We still have the grants outstanding. We still have the rebate pending. Is that correct?
Yes, the rebates are still pending, and the finance department actually said that they were going to remove that from your account and put it back into the county's account, so it's not just sitting in your account waiting until it's time to actually do the rebate.
Did we also stop the CD and renew, or,
We have not.
Right.
Because of the,
so there was
Yeah.
a window there that we have to do that in? Is that,
I believe that window has passed. It was 10 days past that March 27th date.
I wonder if they'll give us any leeway on that because of COVID.
Right, so I don't know if you want to
I'll
reach
make a
out.
note to make sure to call them.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe we do have, we've already passed a action to pull that, and I would suggest, Madam Chair, we continue with that action even with
Okay.
might occur.
It will be minor, the penalty.
Yeah, trivial.
Chair, when I look back through the minutes, there was a specific vote to close the first CD, and then you said that you would take it up for a specific vote in March to close the second CD. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and vote on it, and then, so then you have the authority to do it.
All right, so do we want to go ahead and vote then on closing the CD even with minor penalties if they will not waive them due to the COVID
Madam Chair,
situation?
so moved.
Do
Second.
we have a second? Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
aye,
Aye. Any opposed? All right, I'll go ahead and call them tomorrow and make sure that's taken care of.
thank you.
All right, we have 2 bills to be paid right now to Christian and Barton for work they've done. One of them is for $2,555, and the other was for Or was that one that's paid?
The second one came out after the packet had been generated, so there's
Got it.
one on
One
the
for
agenda.
$38.80 and 30 cents, and the other one's just $25.55.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay both bills due to Christian Barton as a result of their legal counsel.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
No,
Or
aye.
any discussion? All in favor? Aye. No
Aye.
opposed? All right, we'll go ahead and get those bills paid, and we can still get those paid even?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Moving on to scheduled matters.
Chair,
Who's going to
there was a
discuss-
review of the VACORP insurance
yes.
proposal.
Our insurance has come up for renewal. Were there any changes or additions to what we had covered for last year?
The rates remain the same from last year. There is an opportunity to increase your cyber risk. It's on page 2. If you increased your coverage, it would increase your payment, your premium. And those amounts are listed on page 2.
I personally have seen this come up with my own insurance policies, and there is a lot more risk now, in my,
You're
humble
currently
opinion.
covered at $500,000.
for cyber.
Yes,
So we do have some coverage.
yes.
And do you have any way to enlighten us on what exactly we are being covered for, as far as, is it for our website, is it for our bank account, is it for a combination? Do we know what that covers? Network
On page
security
8
breaches.
of the packet is where they get into more details on the cyber risk and what it covers.
Sarah, are we separate from the county itself? Is there any, there's no umbrella coverage or any other type of layering that the county assumes?
I don't know about that.
I believe we're actually on either county servers or county-hosted servers.
I believe you are. Our IT director's here, Randy, that all email addresses with the EDA go through the county servers, correct? And through Office 365? Okay. So that's covered by the county then. So if there was any breach or social engineering or phishing or anything associated with it, it would be on the county. Is that correct?
And the
Okay.
county does have this cyber risk insurance?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Randy.
So if we've already gotten up to $500,000 and the county's already covered,
I personally recommend we don't pay the money to go up over $500,000. There'd be very few
if we're
times when
already
we'd be,
covered, I feel confident, at least we have some coverage, plus the county's covered.
Absolutely, and being in the county domain, that should, and quite frankly, we don't do any transactional work at all, so.
my point would be that.
So if we were to
mainly.
not deny this coverage, do they need a signature page that we deny it?
On page 9 of the packet, there is a signature page, and then you can elect to add it or not.
Okay.
So I'll get you to sign after
And
the
how
meeting.
much do we currently pay for what we currently have?
You currently pay $2,282, so there's no increase.
Is that in?
It's included in the current cost of the policy.
And that covers the officers,
Got it, I see it.
right? Any other discussion about it?
No.
Do we need to vote on this, right?
Yes.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move on with what we have existing for our cyber risk security.
Second, and a point of order, or interrogative, we already filled out the request for coverage, or did we fill it? That included, okay, thank you.
So I'll get you this, I'll sign this and give it to you.
Yes, so just a point of clarification, that was a motion to approve the
Yes.
VACORT proposal.
correct.
Right, and we had a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? All right, we'll go ahead and get that taken care of, and I'll give you that signed copy before we leave. All right. Now we can move on to scheduled matters. The e-commerce grant.
Okay, so before you, we put together the e-commerce program with the idea as a reaction to the current pandemic that's going on. So the e-commerce program would, you should have a packet in front of you that says e-commerce program across the top. It's a pretty simple program, and we designed it that way specifically. We modeled it after the Newport News program, and there was another one, Williamsburg. So basically what it would do is it would allow businesses who currently aren't doing online sales, so the beer industry who can now do curbside and pickups and things like that, allow them to move their websites to online so that they could accept payments and things like that. It would be retroactive back to March 1st, which was kind of when COVID kind of kicked in. We do have a couple businesses who have, who I think would be interested in applying, who have done that work on their website to go ahead and put shopping carts and things like that, and get a Square website so that they can go online and make those purchases and have people purchase off their website. So we just kind of put together some basic guidelines for the program in terms of what it would cover, which is that website design, e-commerce, internet marketing, and those things associated with that. The qualifications would be that they have to be a for-profit business. They must have a current active county business license, be physically located here, and qualify under the SBA definition of a small business. The same business may not receive more than one grant. It's retroactive back to March 1st, and it must be directly in response to COVID. So they can't have a quote or something like this, you know, from like January or something where they were already going through the process. This is in direct response to it. So we kind of put down some generic cost amounts, and those are up to you all if you'd like to accept them, increase them, decrease them, with the idea that the total amount of an award to any individual would be $500, with the maximum amount that you would hand out would be $5,000. So that ideally, if we had everybody max out at 500, you would have 10 different businesses in the county you could help. It would cover 50% of the total project cost, or $500, whichever is least. The website must be done by someone outside their house, so they can't hire, you know, someone within their company to design the website. It has to be an external company doing that work for them. And then as far as the process goes, like I said, we wanted to keep it really simple. So basically they would fill out this last page application. They would submit it to Sarah and I with all the proof and things that we require. And if they met all those needs, Sarah and I would approve it. And that would be that. It wouldn't be a come to vote thing. It would just be, yeah, they've met all these needs. They're good to go. So there's two questions I have for you all in terms of that. One is just to make sure to kind of discuss the amounts on the 500 and the 5,000, if you're comfortable for that. And then if you would like to do it on a first come, first served basis, or if we have a date of submittal and then we review all the applications that came in.
So just to clarify, the total
Sure.
pot of money is 5,000 to be divided up as they
Yes.
come in for a total individual award amount up to 500.
Yes, and this would be from the EDA, so this would be out of you all's budget.
Okay.
So that's really up to you. We just kind of set that kind of threshold. And it could be one of those where we start there, and if we get 10 applications, we get 10 applications. If we get 45, maybe we revisit. Because then there's clearly more need or want for it.
And then whenever the county announces that the emergency has ended, there's another 6 months for them to apply?
Yes.
And how would you get the word out about this to counties, businesses?
Yeah, so Sarah's got a pretty good email list going right now of all the businesses. She's been kind of blasting them in terms of, hey, here are the federal programs, state programs that are available. We'd also use the chamber and their membership to send this out to let them know that, hey, these funds are available. Oh, and social media.
So what's the total, target audience, if you will? Who would be, 10 of them are gonna get it, out of how many would we be sending information to?
I mean, I think the target audience is those who probably have been hit the hardest and who have really had to readjust their business plans.
So how many of them would there be, Casey?
How many would they apply, or how many?
Yeah, how many would we be sending information to?
Oh, how many would we send to? Oh, like 800?
Oh, my.
And then the chamber membership on top of that, and then our social media reach. So I would say probably about, maybe we'll say 3,000? Wow. 3,000 people, but you gotta remember that not all of them have businesses specifically in Goochland, et cetera,
it's
And
on-
this is retroactive, so,
to March 1st.
to March 1st. So we're going to get, anybody who spent the money is going to see it, and we'll have plenty of,
And it's on a first come, first served basis, but are there any other criteria where we might say, don't really want to think that this is appropriate?
That, I mean, that's up for discussion. I mean, we have had a couple businesses who have done this, who I know would be interested in coming forward to kind of recoup some of the costs that they've incurred to do so.
And if you want us to add any more there is a criteria that Casey went through. If there's anything that you think might need to be added to maybe whittle down a little bit, that's fine. And also out of the 800 that we mentioned, that's assuming all 800 don't already have something already in
Right.
place. I think there's a lot of businesses out there that already have in place online, social media, everything that they need. There's just some that just haven't made that step just yet. So
Or they had
do
no
have to have
reason
two quotes to,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
attach to their application.
yeah,
So they either had to have the 2 quotes if they're looking to get it done, or if they've already had it done, they had to have the quote from the person or the receipt of payment, et cetera.
from the one person,
Yes,
the person who did the work.
the person who did the work.
I think it's appropriate that it be first come, first serve.
Okay,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, in order to entertain discussion, I move that we accept fundamentally the concept of the Goochland County e-commerce program, and then I'll defer comments on this and as we continue discussion on it.
And do we have a second?
I have one point that I'd make, and that's, if you brought up the point about is it appropriate or not, is the business appropriate? If you do that, if you do it on first come, first serve, and we don't have anything in place, it's a non-factor, right? They would qualify,
if they provided all the information, yes.
unless we had some prerequisite that said this would not, this particular business wouldn't be eligible.
We can set a deadline, and let's say that all submissions are due by April 30th. And then we're seeing everybody at once as opposed, but then we have to have some sort of selection criteria in terms of who is selected, why or why not.
Really, it comes down if you have 10 people, right?
Right.
Anything
And
over
it's
10,
first come,
then
first
then
served.
all we have to do is make sure that every business that's applied is, and we make it first come, first served, but we don't, if something obviously is not right or raises, and I can't think of what that I can think of what it would be, but I don't think we have any businesses in the county, but there
Except for
could
maybe
be
the gun
something.
shop. If they want to sell guns online, maybe that's
Pretty sure
I don't
that's
know.
illegal, though.
maybe something that we
And that's
can't
things,
do, I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I was just saying, those are things we would look at in terms of making sure that if they're trying to do something like that, that's more illegal. We would do a little bit of research if we had any sort of question.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
To make sure, but, I mean, I do know we have some service providers as well who have had to kind of shift and now do their modules online where they're not used to having people pay for their services via website, and now they're having to do that as well.
I can relate.
Yep.
All right, so we've had a motion. Do we have a second?
Can I hear the motion again?
Motion to essentially to accept the Goochland County e-commerce program as we modify it for discussion.
So we'll have a motion and a second, and then we'll discuss it before we approve.
Right, we're discussing it now, right?
Well, if
I
there's a
might have
second-
jumped in.
If
not
there's a
we can't
second,
discuss it.
yeah, we have to have a second and then discuss
I'm
the
sorry.
motion.
I'll second that.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up, Ben?
I'll defer for a moment, just hear other comments if I may, Madam Chair.
Do you have any comments?
I may be confused about the motion, but I need comments on the motion, or, because we're not ready to approve the program, right? We're just basically having a discussion.
Well, there is a motion on the table and a second to approve
This,
this as presented.
And then to
And
approve
now
it,
we're having a discussion if we want to make any amendments to it.
I mean, out of service, I have no problem with the program. It's a good idea. I'm kind of stunned by the numbers. If you had 800 people that were interested in it, we've got 10 opportunities that could create its own problem. Either we'd be going back into the well, find some more money, or we could.
Well, that's out of 800 businesses within the county.
Yeah.
The majority of them probably already have some kind of,
Okay, so you
Way to-
basically, so the population is somewhat smaller than 800 small businesses that don't have the type of internet presence that they need.
Correct,
and the only way
or shopping cart or,
yeah.
to allow more companies to come forward, we'd have to increase the 5,000 to a bigger number.
right.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We're really talking about a larger number,
And
So-
that's something we can definitely revisit if, like I said, we end up with 40 or 50 applications. It's something we can revisit if you all would like to do a second round of this or do it again.
So anecdotally, I've been talking with businesses over the last month. So this would be more geared towards brick and mortar stores that typically did their sales in person, that didn't do them online. So we're talking breweries, marketplaces and things like that. So, and now they've had to pivot, and now they are having to sell their things online. They're having people calling in and ordering over the phone and doing credit cards over the phone, and then picking up their food and that kind of thing. And so this would just help them be a little more secure in doing their businesses. Most, I would say, companies in the county, especially ones that are like retail, like from home and things like that, they already have this set up.
So small restaurants and breweries.
Right. That's really
There's some service.
where I've heard that the need is.
So pretty much all the ones on your bingo card, right?
A lot of them already had it set up, but there are a couple that didn't.
Yeah. So maybe 25 or 30
Potentially, yeah.
potentially.
And there may be a sector or something that we're missing that we just didn't think about. Like I said, I know for some of the services who are not used to having to bill patients online or not trying to take checks or letters at this point.
So the caveat would be that we would have to come up with an additional chunk of money if we ran out.
And we could do that. If we have demand, we can,
Absolutely.
on the fly, just approve more money to be allocated to the program. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Would you feel free to talk to businesses like that? I mean, would you feel like if, let's say you got 30 of them that wanted $500 or something like that, say, hey, we only have 10 right now, but we can go back to the board.
Absolutely.
So do we want in our motion the ability to approve that without having to vote again? To add to that pot without having to re-vote on it?
I would recommend yes, or running it to a higher amount now.
You could say not to exceed X.
Do we want to revisit our motion?
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, I'll accept friendly amendments to the motion, hence part of the reason for putting it on consideration, that then the friendly amendment would be part of it and part of the original amendment, or part of the original motion.
Would you like to clarify that?
Per Robert's Rules of Order, you can accept friendly amendments. If there's a contrary amendment to the original motion, then there has to be a vote taken to overrule, to actually include it as part of the original motion. If the individual making and the second or to that motion concurs with the proposed change by a tertiary party, then it can be included as part of the original motion.
So
Without a vote.
Does everyone agree that we can, say, go up to $10,000 if we needed to, if we ran out of, if we got enough grants? And that's
Yes.
Yep.
If we, so we're at 5, we can have the ability to go up to 10?
And I'll skip that as a friendly amendment as long as the second does.
Yeah,
also.
I agree.
Okay. And I would also suggest several other things. One is, Madam Chair, that we consider an amount greater than $500. I know from our business, $500 in a lot of cases won't always give you a lot of transactional capability, especially with some of the original setup fees. So I would recommend it actually be 1,000 because of just the cost associated with getting a transactional website up and running.
That really limits us to
So-
half as many.
Unless we want to increase the pot.
But again, it goes back to the 10 for 10,000.
Well, also, a key point is it's not supposed to pay for the whole transaction, just a portion of it. So,
Understand. And hence, part of the reason. Well, first of all, let me make a statement too. I think y'all have done a phenomenal job in these times trying to keep everything organized and do all you can for businesses. I mean, I've seen the emails, I've seen the website. It's phenomenal how you're trying to support businesses during this downtime. And thank you for that. And I thank you for this, bringing this forward, because I think we have to respond in some way, because we have this pot of money that came in as a result of business activities and citizens trusting. So I don't have a problem raising that up. And I can go back to website design in terms of total cost. $1,000 ain't going to cover, as far as I'm concerned, total cost of a website or transactional website. I mean, I can't quote you fees because we haven't been involved in that ourselves in a long time, but it's way more than $1,000. And as these are, and I assume these are loans, I don't see the problem. My big question becomes, who's going to be doing the analysis? If it's individually up to the EDA, that's going to take some time. And I can state right now, I don't personally have time to do a lot of analysis on submittals. So that would be one of the
My
questions.
understanding is that one of you two would look at it and let us know if there are anything that stick out of the ordinary.
And it would not be a loan, it is just
It
a
is a
plain
grant.
Yeah, I was
grant.
going to say, I don't think it's a
plain
loan
grant.
at
It is a
all.
grant.
It is a
Okay.
grant, so no analysis, just if they meet these criteria, they would be awarded the
I'm confusing
funds.
this with the other program before
Yes.
us. I apologize.
That's
So
next.
that's my mistake
I
on
think
both counts.
500 is fair. We're lending a hand when it's needed, and
Sure.
it gives them a leg up to look to us to help them out a little bit.
So $500 per with a max up to the potential of 10 grand instead of 5 is the edit to the program.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Ben?
Yes.
Any further discussion, comments?
I'm okay with it. 500.
And I apologize, the
10,000.
comments were on the other
No worries.
that I was.
Incentive program.
Are we ready to take a vote? All right, we got the motion, the second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we now have an e-commerce program.
Great, we'll start pushing it out then tomorrow morning.
Thank you for
Um,
putting this together. I
of
think this
course.
is going to be much appreciated.
And Madam Chair, I'll ask also that if you find other programs like this or that should be considered, that please, and I don't know, we probably have to hold another meeting to bring that forth before the EDA.
Absolutely. We've seen a lot of the bigger localities do like loans and things like that, but this is kind of one of the first smaller locality programs that we've seen. So, it's the first one we've seen, so we figured we'd try it out and see how it goes.
And as full disclaimer, the company that I work for and also in a majority shareholder in is not going to apply for this.
Great. Okay, so the next item
Okay.
on our list is the incentive program, so that's the other one. Is it in here? That one? No, this one.
Madam Chair, a question if I may.
This
Is this for the implementation of what's permitted within specifically the code of Virginia?
The e-commerce grant program?
The
No,
incentive.
No, I'm sorry, the Economic Development Incentive Program. That is per the standard of, I'm too brain dead, excuse me, I can't recall the code number now.
Your attorney has reviewed this, so he's comfortable with the program.
I understand that, but here, I guess where I'm going in certain respects, I'm not sure encapsulates everything with regards to the code. And I understand the potential deviation, but there's a slight discrepancies within the requirements, I think. Generalities, it's probably okay. So, and unfortunately, I haven't paid enough time to this in the last couple weeks to get into the details down the grass of it, or down in the weeds. I'm too tired, I apologize.
Does this more formalize the incentive program that we already have?
Correct.
That where someone would apply for one of the VDAX programs? That
Yes.
we've already done, this more formalizes it?
Yes, and this is meant to be an internal document, not an external facing document. So this is just kind of the guidelines and how we go through when someone is interested in an incentive or we have a potential aphid. These are kind of the check boxes that we will go through when bringing those forward to you or reviewing them with the applicant.
So this has taken into consideration some of the issues we may have had in the
Yes.
past and more clearly documented how to
Yes.
address those up front rather
Yes.
than behind.
Yes, and we're working with, and we'll get in that in closed session, but we are working with the external parties on some of those matching grants to ensure that moving forward, there's a more seamless process as opposed to 5 different documents with 5 different due dates.
Madam Chair, if I may, is this brought to us for consideration of approval at this time, or just review
Approval.
approval? Okay.
So we've got a brief PowerPoint just to quickly kind of run through the highlights of the program to kind of talk through it with you all. Like I said, it's an internal document meant to broaden and diversify the county's tax base. We have 3 categories for the incentive. So we have the kind of broad one, we have the speculative building incentive, and then we wanted to address the matching grants as well. So evaluation, case-by-case basis. We would originally, staff, Sarah and myself, would meet with the potential project to kind of talk through it and make sure that it qualifies to begin with and that it's in one of those industries and things like that. And then we'd have information submitted by the applicant to include but not limited to, and a lot of these came from your suggestions as well as Michael's suggestions on things that we would want them to include so we don't get stuck in any situations where someone's not able to pay it back or they're not in good standing. So process, like I said, staff would evaluate the project and the ROI. So basically, we want to make sure when we offer an incentive, we are not offering more to them than they are paying in terms of a tax rebate. Board of Supervisors would review the project in closed session to say, yes, we would support this, or no, we have big issues about it. We would bring it to you all in closed session as well to review the project and say, yes, we would generally support this, or no, we would not. Then we would have performance agreements drafted, and this is one of Michael's big pieces, is that prior to any public announcement of the incentive, he wants a performance agreement signed so that they may not use that as leverage or anything else after the announcement to get more money or go somewhere else or anything like that. They are then tied into this legally binding document. Yes?
In most cases, our applications come to us first and then go to the board. You've got it reversed in this case?
So because so we did that with the thought in mind that the funding has to flow through the Board of Supervisors to the EDA because it is their tax rebate. So the idea was that they have to support it as well because it kind of comes out of their pocket first, if you will.
Right.
And so that was our thinking behind that process.
Good, I think so.
And then adoption of the incentive performance agreement, and that would obviously be an open session by the EDA and the Board of Supervisors. So general terms, all incentives would be performance-based, so no more money up front. I shouldn't say no more, no money up front ever. And we are working with, like I said, external parties and matching grants that their grants would line up with us as well. So if we have a matching grant through VDAX, their money would not be upfront either. It would be on a performance basis, because we are then eligible to go claw that money back, et cetera. So we want to make sure that we're both on the same page and that money is distributed the same way. The incentive will not exceed the amount of taxes paid in. TCSD is not eligible, so that is removed from the equation of the amount that they are eligible for. They're required to submit annual reports. The rebate will be held if they're not submitting their data to us to let us know that they have met their metrics and kept them. Must be made for new private investment that has not yet taken place. They can't retroactively apply after they've done the work or the expansion. And once a POD has been issued, a company is no longer eligible. So what is a POD, you ask?
Plan of development.
Plan of development. So we picked plan of development because at that point, we know enough details to know the type of use and square footage of the use. Sometimes an exact business isn't known, but we have a pretty good idea at that specific point of who and what is going to be using that space.
So it's basically public knowledge at that point.
Right.
It's not yet. So if they apply for a POD, and we've had this issue, and we can put them into a system as a certain project name, et cetera, until that is approved, it is not public information.
Okay.
So, all right.
So can you
Oops.
go back one screen real?
Oh, go back again.
Yeah.
There you go.
So once the POD is actually approved or issued?
Issued.
So
I think it's the,
is that the same?
I
same
would use the
thing.
same terminology, yeah, issued or
same.
approved.
So it would be public knowledge if it's issued or approved?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So-
to clarify, sort of to your point, somebody could submit a POD and tell us not to approve it for 6 months, and since it hasn't been approved yet, so there could be a time frame associated with it. Depends on the nature of the project, the landowner, maybe
Right.
some back-end transaction they're waiting on. I mean, there's all kinds of lists of reasons why it wouldn't be issued in a certain period of time, but just because it's issued or submitted to us and it's now in our system, doesn't mean it's going to get approved within the 45-day window that we typically approve things
So they
in.
can still apply for the incentive program up until that point,
Yes.
Yeah.
where it's actually approved?
Yes.
Okay.
So we went over that one. So what is reviewed during a POD? So parking lot, fire protection, erosion, stormwater, building code for access, zoning, state road access, VDOT, et cetera. Here's the development process. So you have zoning approval first, land disturbance, plan of development, building permit. So plan of development is obviously the end user may not be known, but by the time they reach their building permit, they typically are known at that point. So most projects are public and can be picked up by the press. So we do different things to kind of mitigate that. When we have special projects who have submitted things, they go under a code name. They're identified as confidential, et cetera. All right, so we'll launch in the targeted business incentive. Like you said, we use the ROI calculator to kind of figure out and show that there's a positive impact on the county, determine the amount of incentive that they're awarded. It can include land purchase, site and building, et cetera. Can be used as a match for grants for external agencies, and all measures in the performance agreement must be met and verified before the company is eligible. So targeted industries, we kind of talked about these and we've had a little shift in some of them, but pretty standard: manufacturing, general office, the service sector, which would include finance, communications, R&D, warehouse and distribution, a corporate headquarters, tourism, or, and then retail we have in there considered on a case-by-case basis. With the idea that if a massive retailer from Sweden asked to put something here, we would entertain that idea. So, all right, the speculative building incentive. So this is designed really to increase the amount of speculative commercial space. It would be an annual rebate on the portion of the increased real estate taxes collected by the county, maximum of 3 years from the certificate of occupancy or until 75% lease. They have a minimum investment, must be office or industrial. Mixed-use projects must have office or industrial, and only that piece would qualify, and once again, we'd conduct the ROI. And in order to receive the rebate, they would have to show a receipt of taxes paid, proof of the square footage constructed, the list of existing tenants with their suites and square footage, and all measures in the performance agreement must be met and verified before they're eligible to receive the rebate. Matching grants. So we would only consider matching grants from an established agency. County would not provide any upfront money. The rebate would be over a defined number of years. And once again, all measures in performance agreement will be evaluated and verified on an annual basis. And so typically for matching grants, external agencies require tax rebates start in the first year after they receive the grant. If the company does not meet performance indicators in 1 through 3, the county would prorate the tax rebate based on percentage of completion. And you can see the 2 examples there. So, and if a company meets performance indicators in the first 3 years, the county will continue to rebate until the defined date as established by the ROI or until the grant is fulfilled. So basically, if they meet it in year 2, but they're eligible for 4 years, you pay until you hit that max, their maximum amount that they're awarded. I know that was a lot of information. Sorry.
Madam Chair, a question if I may. Is this action to approve, is there anything in the closed session that is imperative that this be approved before any consideration be given in the closed session?
No. And I will say there is, obviously the last time you all saw this was prior to COVID. We do have wording in here, especially around the speculative building space, that it is based on the market. Before COVID, we were seeing vacancy rates of under 2%. There is some rumor that that is going to jump based on just how many businesses, unfortunately, can't make it through COVID with all the shutdowns. So that is something we can revisit in terms of whether or not we would consider that at that point if our vacancy rate was substantially higher than 1.4%.
I mean, I've been around a few years and seen some of these agreements and seen some of the issues that have come up with them. I think this clarifies for me, it's a lot better to have this all in one place here.
Yes.
And Chair, thank you for saying that. I was going to chime in and say, up until this program, I know it hasn't been adopted yet, and we're still talking about it, but basically anyone that approached us for an incentive has been a one-off.
Yes.
We've basically been dealing with all these things as one-off. This provides us so much more guidance, gives staff a little more leverage on having conversations, and just helps us guide us just in general on if somebody calls us, what can we do? What conversations can we have? What do we want to incentivize or not? And if this is adopted this evening, don't forget it's a program that we have in place, and if anything changes in the future, we can always adjust it as needed if we need to.
As it is an internal document, it can be
Correct.
updated and changed as needed.
You got it. If there's something that pops up that maybe we didn't think of, we try to be Superman all the time and think of everything that we can possibly think of, but something pops up, we're happy to bring it to the authority and for your consideration of a change if need be.
Oh, I think you've done a great job on this, pretty comprehensive, based on the ones that we've already done anyway. I guess we don't know what we don't know, but you have had the attorney review it.
Yes,
Okay.
we have.
And we've been talking about incentives for quite a while, and I think this is a good plan to start going forward.
I remember when I first got on this board, we were talking about the structure behind those incentives and not having one. So, let me add my congratulations.
It's a labor
Yeah.
of love.
Ben, do you have any comments?
I would ask that we delay one meeting for approval of this. There's a couple issues I'd like to go over, especially as it pertains to 15.2 4900 series of the code, just from my own edification. But that's just my personal feeling on it. I would never want to dictate that to the EDA.
How's delaying it gonna matter?
Detailed review of it from my standpoint.
Is your concern that it doesn't fall within the
Well, There,
EDA confines?
4907 deals with some issues that I'm not sure are entirely embedded in here, but that, again, is not a detailed review of either, from the standpoint of ensuring compliance. And I understand our council has looked at that. I very well accept that. There's just some sensitivity I've always had to the allowances within the code for what we do and don't do or can't do. So, but that's my only thoughts right now.
Would not any incentive or grant program that came to us, wouldn't it be reviewed at that time as far as what we can and can't do, specific to any program that we may offer to an individual entity that comes before us?
From my interpretation of where we have come before or from before with the other incentives, I don't see we've violated the code. Or we've always been in compliance, full compliance with it. So I just have some thoughts about this is actually a full course implementation of it that I'm just curious about some of the aspects of the code, and I'm sorry for pointing to what I've got up, but in here.
His trusty iPad there with the code pulled up.
Yes, sorry. So that's just my concern. And I would just stress, I don't think a meeting, hopefully things will be more, one more meeting would make that much difference. But that's only my perspective, and that's the reason I stated as such.
Thank you for that. Is there an urgent need from the county that this is passed at this particular meeting so that we may have a little bit more time to review this?
We do have projects that are in the works, but nothing that is an immediate need as of right now. We do have a couple that are kind of going through that ROI process in terms of what they would be potentially eligible for that would then probably come to you all. But I can't think of I don't need it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think if we, it's mid-April, if we, mid-May, I think we'd still be fine if the authority wishes some back check against the state code, and we can contact Mr. Guanzon about it as well, if that's, it's an option for us if you want.
I'm very sensitive to Ben's knowledge of the code as far as the EDA confines, and I would like to have him have an opportunity to review so that he's comfortable voting. Ben, can you set a date with county staff to follow up with him after you've had a chance to review it?
Absolutely. I'd say that by our next meeting. Is that me?
No, it's a trash can outside.
Oh, I thought it was my phone. I'd say by next meeting, it will be complete. And so therefore, from the standpoint, I would offer that I'll go back and I don't know what the appropriate time would be to reach out to our council, or if it would be appropriate.
I thought you said council has approved this?
He has.
So wouldn't he also approve it with his eye toward the code?
I would assume so.
So I don't understand.
The
The attorney's already approved it.
Well, the attorney's going to look at and interpret the code one way, and therefore, for example, I mean, the way 4907 reads, it's not delineated in here. And so I'd like to understand why it's not, because that's one of the requirements that it reads every industrial development financing when submitted to the governing body of the locality has to have this in there, and it's not. I'm kind of curious a little bit why.
So then you'd have to have a discussion with our attorney?
Either me or through the chair, I would suggest, yeah. Or if I
Or
can-
maybe you could submit your comments via email to county staff, and they can have a response from the from the attorney that you can review. Or, I don't
Yeah,
know, how
whatever.
do you
I mean,
suggest?
it's our council, so I would see us coming through us.
Personally, I mean, I don't know the code like you do, but I'm
To that fund. So if we would like to move forward, we would ask the EDA to actually pay for the whole thing. If not, we will have to push the target analysis probably to 2021 at the probably bare minimum.
And even if we did approve the total amount of the project, would you in fact yourselves have time to initiate the project?
I think the benefit of having someone else do it is we could kind of have those conversations and move through it and have them do all the research, as opposed to us trying to find a way to research and try to have some sort of analysis right now. I mean, I will say we have not slowed down at all since COVID hit. So it probably would be something we would potentially look at starting maybe June, I would say, at the earliest.
I can't remember how long it would take. How long did they anticipate it would take for the,
I think they said 3 to 4 months.
so what would our total responsibility be?
I believe it comes in right under 15,000. It was like 14, I'll have the proposal in front of me, 14, like 995 or something like that.
And I'm trying to remember, it's been a couple months. Did we ask for additional information from them about the quote? Did
Yes,
did you
yeah,
have
so
more
we got
information?
clear.
Casey, do you have any idea what our ROI is for a project like this? I mean, we're making an investment.
Sure.
Let's say, what do you see as the return that the county gets on something like this? And do you have a time frame for that?
I don't have a time frame for it. I would say that our ROI, I would say it would be that more kind of targeted, being able to target businesses specifically who would fit like the West Creek area, as opposed to kind of throwing it all and seeing what sticks. We can do some more targeted marketing in terms of reaching out to specific companies or things like that. Looking at some of the databases that Sarah and I have found moving forward that are offering free trials right now. It's glorious. They do have some where they indicate like these are high growth companies, they're looking to expand and things like that. So those are ones that we could cross-reference that data. So here's our targeted industry sectors down to kind of those 4-digit codes. And here's the list of growing businesses kind of in the region or the area, or East Coast. And then we can kind of cross-reference those and find those targeted ones. My hope would be that we could land at least one of those in the next 3 to 5 years, I would say. I only say it just depends on the size of the company too, and on all honesty, what the market looks like after COVID.
So landing one or two of those projects would more than pay for this.
Absolutely. I would say landing one of them, just based on if they were to build a new building, the new tax revenue that would create would probably offset the cost.
Can I ask how this actually works behind the scenes?
Sure.
They send some people here and meet with you, or you go there and
Yep.
meet with them?
They come to us, and that's something where you all are welcome to be a part of. We can sit in a room 6 feet apart from
Right.
everyone, and kind of talk through that. They will do the research on their side in terms of looking at our existing business list. They map out all the different industries and NAICS codes, looking at specific like industrial parks and who is there, what type of business, and really classifying them down to those 4-digit. Then also looking at utilities, infrastructure, location.
So they're taking in every district
Yes.
and targeting enterprises for those districts?
Yeah, and my guess is that a good chunk of that is gonna fall in terms of not preference, but in terms of where they think development should go or where companies would succeed is probably gonna be on the east end, where the infrastructure is already in place. But there may be some in some targeted industries that they say, hey, Midpoint would be really great. They
Yeah.
don't need lots of water. They don't need public water, public sewer, et cetera. This would be great for these specific types of industries.
So then they meet with you, then they go back home and kind of regurgitate it, and then they make a document,
Yes.
and then,
Yep, so the one in front of you right now is the New River Valley Economic Development Alliance. So this is kind of their final
Report.
report, yeah.
Okay.
So you can see that they have some target sectors. So it says advanced manufacturing, and then if we're gonna jump to page 6, so don't get nauseous as I scroll, please. Sorry. So here, targeted, so it talks about, oh, I should have worn glasses. You know, the different ways it's changing, how like they offer competitive wages, how they contribute to the gross regional product, et cetera, and career pathways. And then if we scroll down, it actually breaks it down into, okay, so chemical manufacturing. And then it talks about why. So in New River Valley, there are at least 10 companies with employing more than this people. This is greater than the national average. That's a great sign. And then it just talks about the statistics and things. And then it gives you kind of this list of companies, of the firms that are already there and what they do and who their connections are.
and so then when they make this document,
Yep.
a binder, whatever, and they bring it back to you and present it.
Yeah, so we will probably go through it and review it and edit it,
Yep.
just to make sure that we're all on the same
Right?
page and make sure they're not seeing something really out of like left field that we haven't seen, or, you know, if they come back and say, hey, we really think smokestacks would do well, we'll be like, that's nice,
Yeah.
try again. You know,
And I think that goes back to Mr. Smith's comment at the last meeting, if I remember correctly. I think you said something like, who's going to know Goochland better than us?
Right.
We would be heavily involved in the process. This wouldn't be signing a contract and letting them just go and do this work. We would be heavily involved
Right.
throughout the process. I envision a few different drafts coming through us and eventually a presentation to the EDA kind of showing what the findings are and things like that. So
And then is that the end of the usefulness of the 15,000?
I believe that would be the.
from
the
them,
final.
yes.
So
So
that-
at that
that-
point, then I kind of dive into it, and continue doing additional research in terms of, what trade shows we can go to, where we kind of cross-reference if we look at potential regional partnerships, where we cross-reference with some of them, talking to the state, Virginia Economic Development Partnership, seeing what they're going to that may cross-reference, with some of those that we're focused on. Then we also start creating marketing materials. So let's tell the Goochland story for, say, chemical manufacturing. Let's take this and put it into something pretty. We can send it to the folks at the state and let them market us as well if we're not able to attend something, or just to put it in their hands for them to have some sort of idea about who we are and what we're looking for.
Got it, thank you.
Not a problem.
Madam Chair, who is the New River Valley Economic Development Alliance? That's who's referenced on this
Yeah.
report. Is there?
It's an, oh,
It's just another kind of regional economic development group.
So it's not a combination of public-private?
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it's more than one economic development authority type organization.
Don't get nauseous.
Organizations.
Sorry, I'm trying to scroll up.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but I don't know who all is in the alliance, but it's more than one
Here you go.
county
Uh,
together.
Nope, that doesn't tell you either.
I guess part of my question then would evolve into,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Radford.
it's more than one.
Radford. It's the
Yeah.
Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Radford, MSA,
Right.
in that area.
well, doesn't say much.
Yeah, I'm looking for your specific, the answer to your question.
And part of the reason why I'm asking is that
I don't think it
a
says.
lot of the development that I think would be a result of anything that comes about from this study and other work would flow into West Creek, just because it's by far the largest. And I don't know, I don't remember discussing this at our last meeting with regards to involvement from the private sector. Was that even a question, or should it be a question at all?
We did have one proposal who came in much higher and was only going to look at West Creek, but I felt like that might be a little short-sighted because we do have industrial parks outside of West Creek that have I think play a huge impact into our analysis. And I think if we were to involve that specific private sector, I think they want to look at just that area as opposed to the area as a whole.
And I would by no means want to limit to West Creek. It's just
Yeah.
Sure.
West Creek has the largest opportunity for, and the largest combination, for example, financial institutions around. But, so I just pose that question kind of as a generality.
How would not having this project impact your ability to do your work?
So right now, I kind of, when VEDP calls and they say, hey, who are you looking for? We kind of give them a very generic, pretty much anything but smokestacks. Their project managers have kind of specific industries that they're focused on. So right now, to me, we don't come to top of mind because we don't have those specific targeted industries where I can build a specific relationship with someone saying, hey, this is what you're targeted in. This is exactly what we're looking for. Here's our materials. Right now, it's just, hey, Goochland, here's a generic Goochland County flyer, but it doesn't tell a story that they need to then go to a chemical manufacturer and say, oh, this is why. Here are the companies, here's the supply chain, here's, the 4 different things it hits on why this would be a great location for you.
Yeah, it helps show a lot of commitment from us to the development community. And also to supplement what Casey just said, we get asked frequently what we're looking for. As recently as the Goochland Leadership Enterprise meeting that Mr. Sloan was at with us a few months ago, somebody asked, what are we looking for? What are we targeting here in Goochland? And we've always responded basically, as Casey just said, is we could tell you what we're not looking for. We're not looking for the smokestacks. We're not looking for motor mile on River Road and Broad Street. This just kind of helps provide us a little more guidance on answering those questions. So.
I only have one, it's always raises questions in my mind when you say, when people call us and they say, what are you looking for? And you say, we can tell you what we're not looking for. That's not good enough. And I don't know how to, I don't know how, and I wouldn't presume to tell you guys how to do the job, but I do think that sometimes going outside and looking for help to tell you what you're looking for is great, but I'd certainly like to have some preconceived notions of what you guys are looking for.
Sure.
When you end up with a study with an open-ended, a general
Sure.
open-ended, no real concept of what we're looking for, it allows outside guys to get away with a lot of leeway, I think.
So, and I would say that when we talk about what we're looking for, we have a general idea in terms of those 2-digit that we talked about, that really general. And those are the same ones we listed out kind of in the incentive guideline. The manufacturing, the general office, the service sector, R&D, warehousing, distribution, corporate headquarters. But when you talk about a corporate headquarters, that could be any company in America. We're not going to be a perfect fit for some of those. But maybe we can look at, we've been calling the area where like Cap 1 is, that's our FinTech West Creek campus. So maybe we need to look more into FinTech and kind of dive into that. So who else would qualify? Who else would fall into that category, et cetera? And then in terms of just manufacturing, really drilling down into a 4-digit manufacturing and getting a couple of really specific, like, yes, we're open to manufacturers, but we're really looking for these kind of chemical manufacturing who use a lot of public water and would tie in and pay towards the TCSD and things like that. And so I think that's more of what we're looking for. We have this kind of general idea of what we are looking for, and those are definitely conversations we would have on the front end. I'm not just going to hand them a check and say, best of luck, let me know what you come up with.
No, I wouldn't
You know.
presume you would, but I think that, saying we know what we're not looking for, and I understand it's a generality.
Sure.
The point would be that I would certainly want to be prepared and drill down to get
absolutely.
them focused to what you really need,
Sure.
as opposed to getting a report back that you use 10% of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I will tell you, I've been a part of consultant work where we've gotten a report back and it's like, great, but we can't do anything with it. At the end of the day, it's not real useful. We're
Yeah, I
not,
bet probably 70% of the consultants I've dealt with,
Yeah.
that's what I end up with.
yeah,
So, and I find that if I help
yes,
in a not general, specific discussion going in, that you can target and end up with better data coming out.
Yeah, and I think that's where the New River one, so I showed you the manufacturing, so they have chemical and companies, then they have plastics. So you can, I mean, I think it gives us exactly what we need to move forward with and actually implement is I can go, okay, great. Here's a plastics and materials manufacturer. I can pull a NAICS code off of that, really specifically 4-digit, and then I can even break that down further into 6 and go, oh, okay, you know, here's where we could go and things like that. So I mean, I definitely think if we were to get copy paste this, but Goochland County, we could very much implement it within 30 days of getting it to start that process.
Well, my only other question is, and they're ready to start, so COVID, everything's going on, there would be
So,
no delay?
We
Meaning
haven't,
that if this carries on, it
Sure.
would carry on in the next budget anyway?
yes. Yes. So, I mean, I have not followed up with them about COVID. I was talking to them at the VITA conference when COVID hit and all state employees were told to leave and go home. So they had to leave immediately and were told to go home. And at that point, we were planning to meet, I think, the next week. So the conversations we had at that point were, let's do this, let me know what the EDA says, let's talk through it. If we need to, we can, so.
So one question I would have is, we're talking about doubling our investment
Sure.
on our end.
Yeah.
We may do that, and we might vote to fund it, but then it couldn't start anyway until the next budget starts.
Sure.
I mean, it comes down to spending $7,000 or $14,000, right? And it comes down to the time, for us.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, even if it rolled into our next budget year, we still would not have the money to
So
support.
it's $14,000, and I guess the question is, just like your last, when you're going through an incentive program, the ROI comes up.
Yep.
And the return on investment is, you guys feel is well worth doing, right?
Yeah, I do, especially when I look at what the other quotes came in at and what they were offering, and then seeing what this came in at for the New River.
Well, in my opinion, that, we're the Economic Development Board. You guys have done a great job. You've done everything you said you would do, and you've done more. As long as it's a targeted approach
Sure.
with these people, I would make a motion that we accept the VCU study, or the VCU study group.
UVA.
Excuse me, who?
U-
Virginia Tech?
Tech.
I would make a
Virginia
motion
Tech. We all need to go to bed.
I'm sorry, as you know,
Virginia Tech.
I'm a Wahoo, I have a hard time saying it. I would make a motion that we accept the Virginia Tech study and we fund it through the EDA board.
Any discussion? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? You have your project.
Great, thank you. I'm excited.
I would like to participate.
Absolutely. Figured you would.
And I would too.
Absolutely. As we start the process, I'll be sure to let you all know what the process is, the dates, meetings, and things like that. All right, so I just have a couple more other things for new business. So we are moving along. I have 15 active projects right now that I'm working. Some of them are on hold due to COVID. They're waiting to see what the market looks like once everybody is released from their houses and what business kind of that recession dip, whatever you would like to call it, looks like before they move forward with projects. I'm still considering them active because they are still discussing their options with me, and they're still responsive. So in terms of our buildings and sites numbers for the VA scan, so in Q4 2019, we added 4 new properties and we updated 28 of them to remain active. So right now we have 41 active listings. 31 of them are sites, 5 are office, 4 are industrial, and 1 is a flex space. And the flex space is coming off the market in about 30 days. So we do still have projects turning over. We had a large industrial site go on the market and they had about 10 offers in 48 hours and took an all-cash quick close offer.
Wow.
Yeah. So properties are still turning over and turning over quickly. So, and then I'm working on the West Creek marketing materials. I've gotten kind of a campus map, if you will, pre-approved by by the owners of West Creek, and so now we're working into breaking that into individual marketing pieces so that in the state system, we can have one specifically geared towards fintech and one geared towards this and things like that. And just to break it down, instead of having one massive listing for 3,500 acres, which is a little daunting to an outsider, we now have 7 different campuses ranging from, I think the smallest one is about 140 acres to about 500. So it makes it a little more feasible when we're talking to people and trying to explain what area we're looking at. And that is everything for me until closed session. Thank you.
Wow, you've really been slouching.
Yeah.
I know, I could do more.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Casey. All right, so moving on to an existing business update with Ms. Sarah.
Yes, hello again. Before I jump into the COVID response that we've been actively in, I wanted to give you a quick little update. So since we missed our March meeting, I was able to meet with 4 businesses before COVID hit. I have not had an official face-to-face meeting with any business since COVID hit, but I can tell you I've reached out to, I feel like all of them. Maybe they're getting annoyed from hearing from me, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what that's going to look like as we move forward, and will people want to do calls with me, or am I just going to have to put that aspect on hold and continue kind of to do crisis mode, which is how I've been acting in the last month. Some good news is that Comcast is still moving forward with their installation in Oilville Business Park, and we got 4 businesses signed up for Comcast, and one of them was so excited.
Wow.
Very, very happy about that. So there's several others back there that are interested. They're just kind of tied up in another contract right now, and once that contract is over, it provides a little bit more, I guess, competition in that area. So they were super excited about that. So if Todd wants to jump up, I think he wants to give a quick COVID update before I get into what we're doing for the businesses.
Yeah, Sarah's got some really good information on what she's doing to supplement kind of what she just said. But just wanted to give you a quick update. I got from Paul Drumright. He's actually our internal employee who's been relaying all the COVID-19 related items to our public. He's been doing the majority of the social posts from the county's perspective. Sarah and Casey have been doing them from the economic development side of the house, but he's the guy that's been posting everything else on our websites. But as of 11 a.m. today, there's been 40 positive cases. 25 of them have been at VCCW, which is Virginia Correctional Center for Women, which is right down the road.
All right, how many?
15 of the 25 of the 40 are at VCCW. And I asked him for information. There's some things that I think we're not allowed to say, but I said, you type up what I'm allowed to say. So 25 are the offenders, 21 are still on site, 3 are currently in the hospital, and 1 unfortunately has passed away. But we mentioned this only to really supplement by saying the Chickahominy Health District has provided us with a hotline. So if anybody has any questions, for the record, just want to say that number is 804-365-3340. And anyone listening is more than welcome to check our website anytime or call the county, and we can help guide them if they have any further questions or issues. Having said that, before Sarah gets into hers, did want to let you know that from the community development side of the house, which is our environmental department, public utilities, building inspections, we are not seeing a slowdown at all. It's actually quite fascinating. I feel like we've gone up a little on work. We're a little bit, and we were already really busy. I feel like we're even busier now than we ever have been. Sheltering Arms Hospital is pushing really, really fast to get their temporary certificate to occupy. And our building inspections department, which is only about 8 people, they've had almost 4 of that staff there almost full time. They've been coming in. Some of them come in at 4 a.m., depending on the type of inspection that needs to be done at that hospital. They'll come in at 4 a.m., sometimes on the weekends, to help make sure that that hospital stays on schedule. So I know from Sheltering Arms and their superintendent, he's very appreciative of everything we've been doing here in the county to keep them on track because they are moving really fast. We have been, just so you know, in case anybody asks, anyone that has a set of plans or building permit or something like that on the Sandy Hook side of this building, close to the treasurer and registrar's office, it's just a big brick wall on that other side. It was actually Sarah and Casey's old office. our building and grounds department actually took out one of the windows and put in a drop slot, which is really neat. So anybody that has a set of plans can drop it through the window. I go over several times every day to check on the set of plans, and I could tell you today there was 10 house plans and 1 site plan. So, and that's just today.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's just, there's plans coming in and permits being requested every single day, sometimes up to 5 or 6 a day. So there's nothing slowing down on our side. And everyone, I'm pleased to report, is being very safe. Everyone has gloves, everyone has masks. They have all the proper PPE, if you've heard that before, personal protective equipment. Anything they need, our fire chief's been excellent at supplying us with everything that we need on that end. And I'm also happy to report that the Food Truck Fridays that Sarah's been sending out have been packed. I don't know if you've participated, I have, but and if you haven't heard, food trucks are coming to Essex Bank right next to Hardee's every Friday for lunchtime, and I've been frequenting them probably more than I should have, being locked in all the
Packed
time.
with social distancing. right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. But the food is excellent, and if you haven't had a chance, I believe there's another food truck this Friday, right, Sarah? And it's different food trucks every Friday that come there, but I would highly recommend you check that out.
Good
So,
idea.
if you had any other questions on what I just said, I'm happy to answer them.
Does the county have enough PPE equipment?
At the moment, yes, and we've had a direct line to the fire chief, Chief Ferguson. Anytime we have a request, just to let you know, I needed some more masks, and he was over within 12 hours of my request with a bag full of masks. And just a testament to how great Goochland County is, a lot of the masks that he brought to us were made by Goochland residents. They weren't just the purchased off-the-shelf type thing. A lot of them are just cloth masks that people are making and just supplying and just dropping them off at the fire department and saying, if you need these, please use them. So it's just a really neat thing.
Who's responsible for the responding to, let's say, emergencies at the women's facility? Is that Goochland?
I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head, so I don't want to guess on that.
Okay. Second,
But
real
I can
quick-
find out.
Second real quick thing, assessments are a rolling process, correct? That is, you do have an assessment bill, a tax bill that comes out
Mhm.
at a given time, but is it a rolling type approach at different properties over the span of a year? And do you know if there's any downturn in assessed values? Are you seeing any downturn in assessed values of properties?
I don't know the latest from Mary Ann Davis. She's the county assessor, but I can definitely ping her on that question and ask her. I know the assessments were going to be increased. I do know that at the beginning of the year. I couldn't tell you where they are right now, but I can definitely ping her
Mine all
and email it.
increased. I can tell you
Yeah.
that.
But I can get the latest on that.
Thank you.
Todd, Governor Northam was supposed to talk today about maybe the June 10th deadline, if that's going to be rescinded earlier or later. Are you aware of anything that was said today about that?
It got pushed.
Today is actually the first day I was unable to watch that at 2 p.m.
I
You
did
know,
hear
oh, Sarah might know. I actually had a conference call, so I always
Oh,
watch it at 2 o'clock.
right.
Today was the only day I was able to miss that, so.
No, I've been trying to get it to every day, especially when I know he's going to make a major announcement. So what it was today was the April 23rd. There was an April 23rd date that was for specific businesses. That has been extended to May 8th. Okay, so the June 10th date is still standing. No change to that at the moment. But it was the April 23rd. It's been extended 2 weeks to May 8th.
Thank
So
you.
stay at home till June 8th, and then those businesses closed till at least
May 8th.
May 8th, yeah.
Right.
Stay at home till June 10th.
So that's, like my wife is in the a spa business, so
Correct.
that affects her
Yes,
directly.
sir. Unfortunately.
I think they classified them as recreational businesses.
Non-essential. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions before I kind of jump into what I've been working on? So, I would say like maybe 2 days after all this hit, I set up this business alert on the GoochlandForBusiness.com website, which is the economic development website. The county website also links back over to this. So it's basically 2 sites that I've been updating. Information for businesses is where I've been posting all sorts of programs that are coming out. This was a webinar that was held yesterday. It's getting a little scratchy there. This was a press release that our board put out at their April 7th meeting. They delayed some machinery and tools of business personal property. They also waived requirements for temporary signage, which I think will really help some businesses. As we move down through here, there's opportunities and grants that are coming across that I push out. And then we get into the CARES Act, and it's really confusing. The difference between, you know, whether you want to apply for the EIDL or the PPP and what that means. And so I've tried to put up infographics and just information about it. So if businesses come here, they can probably get some more information before they need to contact maybe their tax guy, or in the PPP instance, they have to go to an SBA approved bank to get the PPP loan. So this is just, you just keep scrolling and there's just information. I've got agricultural resources. There's actually a farmer relief fund. So I've been trying to put out some stuff for our agribusinesses as well. And then employment opportunities. So if companies are laying off people, they can come here and find companies that are still hiring. For example, Domino's is hiring in Louisville. So if you know anybody looking for a job, Domino's is hiring. Resources, of course, federal, state, and then our local resources. So this page gets updated, I would say maybe twice a week with new information as it comes out, especially with the CARES Act. They're constantly coming up with little tweaks that make differences to businesses. So I try to get that information. And then secondly, businesses opening during COVID. So this has gotten a lot of hits from folks. And so we list out businesses that are still operational. And we try to break them up a little bit. So restaurants, food, and beverage. And then their websites are linked. And then retail and service. And then we do have a couple businesses that are currently closed. I need to update this to put that out. So, but just to provide some direction. And then lastly, Virginia Department of Emergency Management has put out a request for assistance with supplies. So a lot of our businesses have contacted me and say, hey,